Hello, everyone. This is our second lecture on. Today we'll be talking about sociological theory. This is the first of two lectures for this week. In this lecture, we'll be talking about levels of analysis, the three core sociological theories, and supplementary theories to those three core theories. First, a note on levels of analysis. Sociologists use different levels of analysis to explore social relationships. These levels are microsociology and macrosociology, or simply the micro level and the macro level. The micro level examines small group interactions to see how they impact larger institutions in our society. So an example of a micro level would be examining families or small groups or book clubs or things like that. The macro level then examines large-scale social structures to determine how they impact groups and individuals. An example of the macro level is to look at how multinational corporations trade with each other, or maybe how nations do trade disputes or go to war, or that sort of thing. So an example of microsociology would be to examine what happens at the target checkout line. An example of macrosociology would be attempting to understand what happens at the United Nations and how that impacts both nations' lives and individual lives. The micro to macro levels exist on a continuum. On the extreme macro level is society and culture, these things that happen on the really big picture. And the micro level are the self and interaction, the things that are existing in the very small picture. And we see things like groups and social inequality exist in that middle, or sometimes what we call meso level. There are three core sociological theories that are essential to the understanding of sociology. These theories are propositions that explain the social world and help make predictions about future events. These theories are sometimes referred to as approaches, schools of thought, paradigms, or perspectives. The first of these three core theories is the structural functionalist perspective, and this is a theory that exists largely on the macro level. Structural functionalism states that society is viewed as an ordered system of interrelated parts or structures, which are the social institutions that make up society. So these structures include family, education, politics, the economy, government, even sports teams. These are all parts of the organism that is society. Each of these structures meets the needs of society by performing specific functions for the whole system or the whole of society. The allusion is often made to thinking of society as one large body or organism. And similarly, just as your heart cannot exist without your liver, cannot exist without your brain, cannot exist without the other functions and parts of your body. Similarly, education can't exist without government. Government can't exist without the electric company to make the lights go on. And none of those can exist without the family structure to make more people and to raise the workers of the future. Conflict theory is our second core sociological school of thought. Conflict theory states that society is driven by conflict between the haves and the have-nots. Sorry about that. Or, in other words, the bourgeois or the owning class and the worker class. This sees social conflict as the basis of society, and social conflict is necessary for positive social change. Well, what would positive social change look like in this perspective? The conflict theorist sees that the rich and the powerful dominate society, and they shouldn't be. The conflict theorist is interested in liberating the workers, liberating the proletariat. So from that perspective, positive social change would be a situation in which the workers, the proletariat, the have-nots, whatever you want to call them, rise up and overthrow their capitalist masters. And this is a very striking school of thought and is interesting for a variety of reasons. Symbolic interactionism, then, sees interaction and meaning as central to society and assumes that meanings are not inherent, but rather are created through social interaction. So, for example, the symbols in your lower right-hand corner, we have a number of symbols that are central to Hinduism and Buddhism to a lesser degree. So we have the Om symbol in the center, which is a symbol of contemplative meditation. And on the sides there, we have what appear to be swastikas. Now, in Western society, our most common exposure to swastikas is that as a symbol of the Nazi Party and genocide, racism, etc. However, in India, especially ancient India, the swastika was and still continues to be a holy symbol. So that same swastika in a different social setting becomes a different symbol. And when we look at symbols as sociologists, we need to take into account the context and the meanings of those symbols to the people that created them. Table 1.1 is an example of a table in your book. We have tables like this in each chapter. I believe they're all table 1.1, table 2.1, table 3.1, etc. I think they're the first table in every chapter, and they lay out the topic of that chapter in terms of the three core sociological perspectives, so structural functionalism, conflict theory, symbolic interactionism, and whatever other theories also relate. This table shows postmodernism is also being important. But I point this out because these tables are really helpful for your study. Uh, Another theory that is related to function structure, the three core, is feminist theory. Feminist theory looks at both gender inequalities in society and the way that gender structures the social world and continues remedies to these inequalities. It should be noted that feminist theory has strong roots in conflict theory. So where conflict theory was very interested in the rich exploiting the poor, feminist theory is largely interested in how traditional male roles are used to dominate those with traditional female roles. So how does that relate? Now, you might say, well, some has been left out, and you're right. Queer theory, then, proposes that categories of sexual identity are social constructs and that no sexual category is either fundamentally deviant or normal. So it took the observation of queer theorists from feminist theorists saying, yeah, okay, men oppress women. Queer theorists said, well, yes, but also straight men and women oppress those who do not identify as heterosexual. So what does that look like, and what does that dynamic look like? So in this way, queer theory comes out of feminist theory comes out of conflict theory, and all of these theories are interested in how one group oppresses the other group and how that oppression can be broken. Postmodernist theory, then, suggests that social reality is diverse, pluralistic, and constantly changing. This has very strong roots in symbolic interactionism, and the symbolic interactionist is interested in how symbols surround us in our society and how societies come together to determine what symbols mean to the collective. Postmodernists then say, yes, that is very useful, but the postmodernists step up from symbolic interactionists to say, well, it's not only interesting to know what these symbols mean to society, but what these symbols mean to each individual. And it may be that each individual has an entirely different way of interpreting society. So that is something that is interesting to us. That's the end of this presentation. We have another presentation to this week, and after that presentation, we will discuss our assignments for the week.